you will know the charter pledge comes into the town on Friday, and we'll obviously be having the opening at 1 o'clock in the town centre. So you're welcome. And on a positive note, when the committee discussed town centre lights some considerable time ago, and I'm pleased to say that I had an email today to say that all the town centre lights have been replaced, all with LED is an education place, isn't it? LEDs, and probably where I needed to go. But they've all been replaced. So if you go through the town, you'll see bright lights. And as you remember, we had people with disability scooters come to us and tell us as a council that they couldn't see as they went home at night. So they're bidding to replace. It was the lanterns that took time. So the committee wanted that done because I think Councillor Mara and I picked it up one night when we were stripping down an event. We were being chastised about it, but the committee discussed it. So we've all managed to get the lights done, which is tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that completes our minutes. It seems to be quite fewer than usual. And special welcome to Mike and Vic from the Bletchley Milton Keynes Lions Club. Our next agenda item is bleed kits. And I believe we have a presentation.
Thank you. Well, good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you for inviting us here this evening, giving us the opportunity to speak to you on this subject. By way of introduction, my name is Mike Lee, and I am this year's President of Bletchley Milton Keynes Lions Club. I do actually live here in Buckingham, and I do recognise several of the councillors here. And some of you probably recognise me because I'm also very involved with the Royal British Legion here in Buckingham. Bletchley Lions Club, we do like to keep things local in the local area, and myself and my partner Anne have presented donations on behalf of Bletchley Lions here in Buckingham to the League of Friends of Buckingham Hospital, to the Buckingham Food Bank, and only last week to Becky Lucas, who is a young single mum who lives here in Buckingham. She's undergoing extensive treatment for blood cancer, and she's raising funds to employ a nanny to look after her children as she has to go into isolation. We've made a donation of £1,000 to her thing. Some of you may well have seen it. She's been quite active on Facebook and with her crowdfunding page. We're here tonight to explain public access bleed kits, what they are, how they came to be about, and why we are asking local councils to support us in getting as many into needed local premises. And I will now hand over to my colleague, Vic Wright, who has been leading this project on behalf of Bletchley Lions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, councillors. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Victor Wright. I'm a member of Bletchley Milton Keynes Lions Club. Why are we working in the Buckingham area? Well, 8% of our members actually live in Buckingham, and we are trying to grow that number. So we have been working with various Buckingham places, the hospital, we donated money to, and other events, as my colleague already said. All the money collected by Lions Club goes to charity. That is 100% of donations. Nothing is taken out. The members pay to be Lions. No expenses are paid for members, and we have no full-time staff or part-time staff. So the issue that goes in those collection boxes is donated to charity. Why we're raising money at the moment is that we are supporting the projects of the Open Milton Keynes University COVID Vaccination Centre. We do 30 slots a week of helping people in and out of the vaccination centre, car parking, and we've been doing that since nearly 2 years. We started about 2 years ago, supporting it. So we do about 32.5-hour slots. If Buckingham Council would purchase 10 kits and Lions Club would purchase 10 kits, that would be 20 kits for your area. So it would be a 50-50 agreement, if that makes sense. The kits are costing, and I checked this morning, £80 plus VAT. Okay. I don't think we probably pay that. Certainly, large clubs actually don't pay that. So it's basically £80 per kit. Okay. So in relation to installed 14 kits in places such as the Working Man's Club, across the road from the railway station, where MK Don supporters and other supporters come out and they go for a drink in the Working Man's Club. The Postal Club, which is a nice family club, Betfred's betting office in Bletchley, we've installed one there. A lot of time that is open late. We always try and find places that are open late, like pizza, chicken cut vendors and things like that, and on the family areas. In Lane Budget, we've had a meeting with the licensee, which was very successful. We went to one of their meetings, which they hold about once every 3 months, and we explained the project to them, and they came up with locations for the fleet kits. Okay, they're mainly going to public houses, but we are trying to find late night venues for petrol stations and all sorts of places around 24/7 if we can. Okay, I live in a small village, Salisbury, near Lane Buzzard. And these fleet kits aren't just for stabbing, that was the original situation why it started. So the people are using head trimmers and all sorts of horrendous tools nowadays in the garage. And you can easily have an accident. I successfully trimmed my ankle when I was in the churchyard. So now that's quite a lot of blood coming out of that. So there are other reasons in stabbings actually, in car accidents. If I have fleet kits in as many places as we possibly can, and we are still going to the aim in Leighton Buzzard and in Bletchley. Obviously the kit is, if anybody is punctured by whatever method, be it stabbing or shooting or traffic accident, this will stop a catastrophic bleed. Bear in mind, I don't know what the ambulance situation in Buckingham is, but the claims get there in 7 minutes. Well, I mentioned this another, I had a council meeting and they said, well, like something more of a time it will take an ambulance to get to somewhere. Somebody could bleed death in 7 minutes, okay, if it's a stab wound or puncture. Just a true story. We installed a kit in a nice pub, family run, dad owned it, 2 sons worked in it, everybody knew each other, lovely pub. 2 weeks later, we got a call to say they had used the kit. And that was in Bletchley, finished the reason this is about is a young man called Daniel Bard. He was 26 years old. He went out to celebrate a new job and he got stabbed outside the Porsche Tavern in Birmingham on a night out, celebrating a new job. There was no first aid kit, no bleed control kit available. He died in hospital that evening. So I'm going to pass the kits around actually. If you're welcome to both of them, like around if you're welcome to both of them, they don't have the contents because they are actually live kits and we are going to use them. The training course list for publicans, there's 8 videos and it takes less than an hour for somebody to be trained up and all the equipment that's in there. These kits are very similar to the ones that armed police carry in the police car. So they're well known. It's supplied by Birmingham. Lots of ambulance are supporting this effort, and the police are supporting it in lots of cases. Certainly in Leighton Buzzard, they were involved in it. So we can put them in defibrillator cabinets. That might compromise the security of your defibrillator cabinet. That's the only issue. Or you could have another box next to it, a small box with a keypad entry, which the police would know and various other organisations would know. Certainly in Leighton Buzzard, the defibrillator cabinet, all the police officers have the password to get into them. So that is the situation. There is a trauma dressing in there, defibrillator, which is for a bigger chest situation. So there's quite a lot of stuff. And there's gloves for the personal protection of the person doing it. And if you want to see this, if you type in lead kit on the internet and go to Control the Bleed, which is the website, you can see the training courses and you can read the information. So that is the kit. There are 80 in units. Subtracting that, which we won't pay or something we don't pay. What we're asking is, would you match fund 10 units at £800 with right, £800 for live covered electrically? Would you go forward with this project? If you've got any questions, please ask.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Do you want to sit down if you want? No. Councillor Stutchbury.
I'm very pleased you've come. It's an excellent project. What I think we need to do is take this to a committee and discuss it at a next meeting. With the clerk permission, I'm going to ask for it to be put on to the Town Centre Events Committee so that we can discuss it. I think it's probably where we would react with people, and then we can discuss that at the committee and then make a recommendation to that committee, and whether the clerk then decides that we have to make that in council, whether there's some other way, we'll have that discussion before the meeting. But I think it's something we should personally be involved in, but obviously we have to find a means of funding it because it's not actually in the preset for the beginning of the year. And I think that would give us a chance to see your video, which can be come up, and the members of the committee can then discuss this in length. And I think I'll talk to the town clerk about some ideas I've got that might work, but she'll tell me they're not legal then. But I've got some ideas how we can perhaps, but I wouldn't like to commit now because I think it'd be inappropriate, but I do think we do need the kits.
Yeah, thank you. I should have explained we can't decide that.
That's fine.
And we'll seek the town clerk's advice as to the most appropriate way forward with this. Councillor David.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the I'm sorry I came in partway through your thing. I would fully support this. Having known, I don't know if you heard about a policeman in Maidenhead who lost his leg about 3 years ago. He was the son of a friend of mine and grew up in Buckingham, and he only survived because he got public fashion of tourniquet from something, and he's been behind the project there for police cars out with them leg kits and tourniquets. So I fully back this project.
I have been taking these kits around various locations, and I was frightened with some of the videos I actually saw of a chicken pizza place. The guy was running around with a great big sword around his restaurant. I said, if you have any stabbing or any issues, come look at this. And on his phone, you had this guy running around with a massive great knife. And we had the same in Leighton Buzzard. There was a similar sort of restaurant actually, late night pizza place. Somebody beating the hell out of each other and knife and all the rest of it. I mean, it's open mind like that. Especially when you walk to an Indian restaurant and think, I'll go to the pub next door and have a quick beer before I go in. You know, you can think that if you don't want to do that, it's that situation.
Thank you. Councillor Colley.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. You probably know Buckingham has led the way in defibrillators. Our late friend Jeff Shaw masterminded that. Is there any way that this can be linked in with the defibrillator sites?
Yes, if you look on the site, there are actually defibrillators with this pouch inside the box.
Right.
Or you could have a separate box on the outside, because you do compromise the pathway that you give it out. I mean, I don't quite know how, but I mean, the police officers have it in Leighton Buzzard, the defibrillator. But then if you have to phone, I've got 3 on the parish council, and there's 3 in our parish, and you have to phone the ambulance to get the codes. And then you could have 3 people with you as well, which is 1 patient, somebody with a patient, somebody arranged to get the defibrillator. But no, there's a couple of ways we can do it. But most of ours are actually installed in licensed premises, especially the late night and 2 o'clock ones. And I'd say petrol stations, Betfreds in Bletchley, anywhere that's open late night. That's some of the problems that actually are probably. But a lot of publicans are taken on. Bear in mind they're free to publicans. We didn't unite publicans for it. So they were quite keen to take them on actually. And the licensing committees of both Bletchley and Leighton Buzzard were very keen to take it on. It's just another string to the bow. I hope they never use them, they like defibrillators, you never get used, but they're there for insurance reasons, okay. You can save a life, we probably have actually in Lexley, a nice pub with 2 brewers, lovely pub, lovely people. It wasn't actually a customer, it was somebody outside the staff, so it wasn't actually a pub and store. The one thing I would say, we haven't really thought through the replacement, so if they do get used, I would think the public might have to fund another one, if that's what they want to do. But that's, once again, it's tax deductible, and I don't see a problem. So,
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor O'Donoghue, Councillor Willis, and then Councillor, my name's.
Thank you, Mayor. So the question that I had would be, where the kits are installed, does anybody there need to be trained to use them specifically because they're big kits? Or would it be that there usually be somebody on site that is first aid trained anyway? What's the kind of process if we got asked that, say somebody at petrol station, we wanted to leave a kit there and they said, well, hold on, then are we liable if anything happened? We need to have someone trained. How does that kind of side of it work?
If you go to lead kits and then control the bleed, it's a website. There's a training video run by Dr. Lyons, but Dr. Lyons, he goes through the whole situation, plugging holes in wounds, bandaging up, and he goes all the way to railway crashes, believe it or not. I mean, it's a full one. So I've always told publicans in 15 to 30 minutes, you can have your staff trained up. The videos are 1 minute. It's about 3 minutes that shows you that. So a publican could train all his bar stuff in 30 minutes actually. I visited a pub actually, and one of the girls there 3 years ago, there was a stabbing in the pub. She was working as a barmaid, not the owner, barmaid. She was still traumatised by that.
Yeah.
Waiting for the ambulance. She was, we're waiting forever.
Yeah.
So it is not just the person, it's the public.
Absolutely.
300 staff as well.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Willett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a person that works in the social care sector, I can think of no better use of public money in investing in these kits. I think that over my course of serving as a support worker in the charity sector for homeless people in Bletchley, I think that it's paramount that we start using these kits and teaching people how to use these kits. I'd actually go one step further in not only funding these kits, from my personal view, is actually provide the training for from the Town Council's website on how to use these kits. The more people that know how to use them, the better we have a protected neighbourhood. I had an incident at work, for instance, where we had a pizza cutter involved and went straight over their eye, claret all over the top. And, it was quite a severe bleed. But these kids stopped that immediately and they were able to get to hospital quite easily, stitched up and things like that. Granted, nice big scar on the eye. But the more people that have access to these kits, I don't see that as a bad thing. I'll gladly support that home bill or endorse this product.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to agree that it's more stabbings, and it seems to me personally because I was the brother to suicide. He cut himself in the leg today.
Yes. Driving accidents, all sorts of things. We are just looking at stabbing people.
Thank you very much. Councillor Try, and then we'll need to move on.
If I could just, couple of points on that, maybe. One thing we didn't want to tell with the landlord was a bit reluctant to have one because he thought, will people think because these do come with a big sign that people can see in the window, publicly get held here, that would people think, oh, if he's got that, it must be a rock pub. The other point I was trying to make, why we suggested 10 kits here. I have personally been around and spoken to all the landlords and people here in the town. They are all very much in favour of it. I've identified 9 premises that would definitely have one. And in fact, the manager of Bin and the manager of the cocktail bar, they said late at night, whatever you do, put one in Desperate Dan's burger van. It's quite interesting.
Let's go on them burgers.
Thank you for that. Councillor John.
Yes, thank you. Is there a best before date of these?
There is, it's quite long, and I'll let you know, actually, it's inside, the instructions are really inside. But I would say, I've got no idea how long it was, but it'll be a long time.
There will become a time when they will need to be placed.
Yeah, same with defibrillators, which are full battery lasts about 3 years.
Yeah.
So there is a lifespan on everything medical, I guess. Not saying it won't work, but it's a band, but I mean, there are authorities do have all the stuff in stock leaving, believe it or not. This is based on a military war type situation, and this is developed on the battlefield of the plan. So, you know, they're forward for that, something that's stock leaving.
So is there an organisation that makes a note of that, or is it the ambulance service which?
The ambulance services do, and also the Lead Kit company do, actually, and the Daniel Bar Lead Kit charity actually have a log of where they are.
Okay, right, thank you very much.
I'd say local police force and that probably to name because they're the ones who can do their crew.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. Like I say, we can't make that decision this evening. We'll
Clarify. I'll get in touch with you. I'll put the report together for Interim Council.
Give them those.
Tell us the premises you're thinking about, and we'll put that to Interim on the 7th of November.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give them one rather, but we'll get in touch.
I'll get a card down for Paul on the.
thank you very much. You're welcome to stay, but I'm sure you have other ways of spending your evening.
I'm caring for the parent council.
And thank you
But have
for
you
your
got
time.
any authority? Have you got any authority? They don't have that video.
You don't have authority to speak at the moment. Thank you for your time. You know, you've obviously that is. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I walked into that, look.
You let Justin.
Jump in feet first.
Well, yeah, but I did yesterday, didn't I?
Thank you. So moving on to item 8, which is the external audit. We've had a report on this. And note.
Yeah.
Have any questions or are we everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Can you just raise your hands to say you're happy?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. And the ward boundaries, that's the consultation about the proposal to change the ward boundaries. I did have a look at that and it's completely open for comments, I think. No, it's not like a survey or questionnaire to fill in. It's literally an open box for your comments. Thank you, Councillor Schaefer and then Councillor Statutory.
So I have commented on this before, and you can basically send them a letter and write whatever you want in that letter. They will or will not take account of it, obviously. The one thing that I would say, they seem to be particularly keen that the wards are all of even, not all of even size, but that there's an even number of electors per councillor. And anything that one seems to suggest that departs from that doesn't appear to be well received.
Thank you. Councillor Statutory.
I've already preparing, not an interest, but beautifully interested at all, but I have responded to this consultation on 50 come round Buckinghamshire Councillors. I've put a response in, but I do think we should, as a council, discuss the boundary changes, because the boundary changes in themselves are interested enough that this council should be interested in what they are. It's quite a change from previous, and of course the town is growing, and the elements that I've commented on, I don't think it's appropriate to suggest what I've said at this meeting, but I have made a few comments around the obvious around the boundary changes, because clearly once this change is done, we may have to then look at a later stage at the town boundaries. Reading through this submission, which I'm sure everybody's read, it puts the town back into one, which rather deletes the necessity for 4 wards in a town council, I would suggest, at a later stage. We've got 4 wards now, which was the result of a previous boundary change to suit a district council need. So I do think at some stage I'll probably come back to us to discuss that, because if wards have to be in sync with in some fashion, but there is quite a change, and it's the fact that you've got the whole of the town for once as a unit with an additional parish contributory is quite a difference to the town being split in the middle, which follows the old county boundary, stroke district ward, and the kingdom of Mercia and Wessex. So I do think we should discuss it in a bit of length before December, but not to comment as a council would be wrong. We can then all comment as individuals, but I do think we have to comment as a council and shouldn't just sidle this along, because other people will be making paperworks of comment. And I think this council must have a view on how it sees Buckingham going forward in the future. Even if we disagree on the end result, we should have a view.
Thank you. So this is on the agenda for us to note, and I think maybe the principle, as Councillor Sutcliffe has said, that as town councillors we probably ought to write our own contributions to this, and I'll seek the town clerk's advice as to whether we can comment as a whole as town council.
Theoretically, of course we can, but I have asked around other clerks, and mostly the advice is for some councillors these changes may be good for you, for some they may be bad. So most places I think are looking at individual comments rather than going to a collective comment that might not necessarily represent everybody here. But that is a decision for you as a council if you want to work towards a common view.
Thank you. I saw Councillor Schaefer's hand. You've already commented.
Yeah, but I think you projected slightly different to what I said.
Councillor Schaefer had her hand.
No, I was just going to reinforce, I know of councils that felt that their boundaries wouldn't suit them, and they have commented as a council. For some reason, they must have been able to come to an agreed view on this. Whether we would as well is of course a completely different question.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just it was that I thought we should discuss it, but not like this in an open meeting. I think we should have an informal meeting to discuss how we feel the boundaries going in a bit more detail, and then make from that meeting a recommendation to a future meeting before the December deadline. And I think that's a sensible thing, because there's going to be a huge difference between the way that we look at this, and I think it should be the majority view, which is the town council's view, because in the end, that's quite an interesting submission. If you're about having met the boundary commission on 1 or 2 occasions, the one thing they can spot is gerrymandering from people, and I think and there will be a lot of councillors, different individuals see a view. I do think that we should take it to a subgroup if Councillor Schaefer agreed with me, and discuss it informally, and then bring back a formal recommendation, because it would be really tiresome to argue points out at a meeting like this.
We've only got this on to note that this consultation is active until the 5th of December. can we at this point vote on whether we should form a small group to make a recommendation to a future council?
I can't see any reason, if that's what you would like to do, yeah, the item is there on the agenda to be discussed.
Small group.
We've got a proposal from Councillor Statutory. Does anybody want to second that we form a small group?
It was not to form a small group. Every councillor's view is important. A small group means that you leave it to a group of people to decide everybody's view. I think everybody's view is here, not a small group. I was thinking as an informal meeting of councillors to discuss it. A small group, you're then doing what?
Sorry, I misunderstood what you said.
I didn't say small group. I don't agree with small groups. You actually then,
Just misunderstand.
yeah.
And that would second the informal, an informal meeting to.
That could be
Discuss
online
it.
then, couldn't it? If it's an informal meeting, we could do that online, couldn't we?
On Zoom. Yeah.
But you want an officer there, if you want just councillors to have a informal conversations amongst yourselves.
No, it needs to be governed.
Robert and Kid is keeping in mind. Those in favour of that proposal?
I think it does need discussing.
Yeah.
What's everybody?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll have to maybe do a doodle problem and see how it works. Is that okay? Thank you.
Christmas morning.
Item 10, the committee meetings calendar. Receive that. I did notice, I went through the 23rd of March is the annual town meeting. I think it said the 25th. So just to clarify that.
So it's 23rd, not 25th.
It's the Thursday, but yeah.
Sorry, I want to get that changed. And we'll email the correct one round.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Just thank you for the calendar, but I think a point that the mayor's choosing, we need to have an agenda item to discuss the annual town meeting so that before we do it, which could be done in the new year, to sort of how it works and what we thought was good, what we didn't want and how we want to improve on it, and how much time we want to give.
This is on the calendar though, rather than the
but
specifically. I only raised that issue because of the date that was incorrect. Thank you. In number 11, statutory consultation for introduction of emergency access double yellow line from the Bus Stand Clearway. And this is outside the Buckinghamshire store in the existing lay-by. So again, it's alerting us to this consultation. Councillor Statutory.
I have to declare that I've been working with the school governors on not the double yellow line section of it, but the axis of it. I've been working with them and the school to, if you remember, that to get the community board to fund the axis. I hadn't seen the double yellow lines element of it until this came out. Now, I think that we need to understand whether that's an advantage or a disadvantage to the wider community outside the school. Because if you level, we need to understand what would be the advantage of having double yellow lines, because if you park the other side of them, you effectively would have been able to be fined. And at the moment, when people visit the school, they often park there because you can't actually park in the school, and you can't actually park in the Swan School car park without paying to park to visit the school. So I think it's a bit deeper than the WO lines, but I'm really, really pleased finally the school's going to get the access they've been asking for getting on for 2 years, which I have worked with them on. So, and with their governors as well and the head, but I do think we want that to discuss. I'm interested in people's views on that element of it. That's the real problem, I think, not the access. The access is absolutely necessary.
Yes, it's the issue of people not being able to park. At the moment, it's restricted to an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Statutory for his hard work on getting the access and the meetings that he's had and conversations. So I like that minuted if that's possible. But yeah, I agree with his concern over the double yellow lines, because he's absolutely right. To be able to park in the Swanpool car park, you do have to pay for it. If it's a teacher's evening or parent-teacher evening, the road outside is used for parking, and that does trouble me. The other side of it is having it enforced, because when I've inquired about having some kind of enforcement outside Borton Meadow Primary School, the argument has always been, well, who's going to come down and enforce it? You're not going to have traffic wardens coming around here. The police don't do that anymore. So would they just be for show? And but then nobody's going to be able to park there, and that would worry me.
The deadline is this Friday, so we do need to come to a view tonight whether we support all of it or only the access aspect, and raise concerns about people not being able to park there at the times when at the moment they are allowed to, but presumably that's been thought through, the reasons for that. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't guarantee that.
Has anybody else got a view on this? Sorry. Yeah, I do that. I'm shutting myself up now. Nobody else with the view, so Councillor Stutchbury.
I'd like to propose that we write them saying that 100% support the access, and we'd like to, at this stage, we can't actually support the double yellow lines because there isn't sufficient information there to allow us to make a rational decision on it.
I'll second that, Mayor.
And we need further information before we could support the double yellow lines.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can. There may be a logical reason that we don't know about is why they've included, but it's not in the report.
Right.
Right. So we've got a proposal there on the seconder. Are we ready to vote on that? Those in favour of that proposal?
I think again, that's unanimous.
Thank you. So that leaves you to. That's urgent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Friday. And item 12, we only have one Buckinghamshire Council councillor here this evening. Councillor
The floor. Well, I'll try and stand and not lay down there. First element I mentioned tonight that we've town councils achieved getting the lights, which we followed up jointly. The other element which I want you to be aware of, tomorrow I attend Cabinet. You will be aware the Town Council's long-term interest has been in the archaeology of the 80 people in the cemetery of Brackley Road. I went back, and this is 12 months since I last raised it at Cabinet, and I have had officers' responses to their credit. For one, I haven't had a substantive legal way forward. So I return to Cabinet tomorrow to ask that. I've been involved in questioning special education and needs questions, in the sense that only in the past 2 days it's evident that I was right to do so. Because at the moment you will be aware that children are waiting 2 years plus to get an EHCP report. I've also questioned the Oxford Health Foundation, who applied for a grant. They did some work the previous year, applied for a grant in January of this year, and as from the last meeting when I met them, they still haven't had a response from the government to say whether they would fund they call it commissioned. It's a commissioned service, whether they give them money to fund the commissioned service. So I'm following that up. I've also been questioned only the other week, an element which the chairman of planning understands immensely is the fact that there is no signal on how they're going to manage development contributions in through either SIL or Section 106 towards the health service. The responses on the website, I'm despite the cabinet member saying he'd sent me a written response, I wrote back to the office today to say that was nice, but I've not received the written response, because if I have, I will give it to the planning committee to read. And it didn't seem that there's anything going to happen quickly. It seems that it's going to be part of the Buckinghamshire plan. Now, the Buckinghamshire plan, according to the statute of the council being formed, has to be complied by 2025. And in my further questions, which have been many, I have not yet received a substantial report on two strong points. One being, when will they consult Buckinghamshire councillors about the development plan? The last time they spoke to Buckinghamshire councillors was 2020. So they haven't spoke to us. You can read it, it's a public record. There is what they call a working group looking at this, which consists of the chairs and committees, cabinet members and senior officers. And they're reporting to the Growth and Infrastructure Committee, which I think is another point of governance and oversight and involvement. But more importantly, from my point of view, is when speaking to them, they haven't yet, apart from saying they will consult, they haven't actually said when they're going to consult with Buckingham Town Council and other parishes. I've also been following them up in another occasion when I visited one of these meetings to do with the contribution from the section 106 towards the A421. You know, we as a council discussed the A421 and we've been pushing to be part of the consultancy, the A421, even though there's £840,000 LF, the section 106 put into the A421 uplift. We are of difference on whether that is a predetermined view or part view. That's in the public domain, and I think the response to that has been published. The other elements around that is you may be aware that this is good news, that for once, and I think I informed the planning committee, but the good news is that in my meetings of health and scrutiny, it's come to light that, as you will remember, all of us on the council, and Anthony Ralph will remember this as well as anybody, that we pointed out that closing the hospital, keeping the hospital beds open would have been a really good idea some years ago. Funny enough, they've come round to our view now, and they're going to reopen hospital beds in Buckingham Hospital, which was this council's view all along. And we said, why are you closing them? And then we asked to be consulted and they wouldn't talk to us. And now they've took a decision to fill them up because they cannot move patients through hospital and they need somewhere for them to go, which is exactly what we said at the time. But I suppose we shouldn't clap. We should be grateful that they've seen sense. On the other elements of childhood mental health, they haven't really, how do I put it? There's no real answers on how they're going to fund childhood mental health, how they're going to resource that, and only that they put in a report that they're going to do lots of things, and when questioned, they hadn't got an idea where the people to do this was going to come from. And if you think of the multiple children with mental and stress, who we lose some of them sadly, and there's no real support for child mental health anywhere in Buckinghamshire, let alone the country. So apart from they're saying things in reports that they're going to do, but they're not actually got any idea how they're going to do it. And on the business of the skate park, which I know Councillor Donoghue has been very much interested in, the cabinet member still hasn't actually given us a full answer of when it's going to happen. And we're still trying to get to the bottom of the elements around that with the cabinet member. We're still waiting for the smoke to come out of the big tower in Buckinghamshire, like the papal smoke, and then maybe they will return to do it. On the Morton Road, I attended Morton Road planning with Councillor Mark Cole, and despite our best efforts, we were ignored, and there's no change there. But on a really positive matter, but quite jarring, I worked with colleagues on this council for many, many years. And the colleagues previous and the colleagues present have all been consistent in our efforts around disability access. And in fact, we collegiately support each other and to get access. We have succeeded to get a disability sloping camp and Clarence Park. Unfortunately, despite Councillor Strain Clark, Councillor Mike Smith, who's not here, and Councillor Highlands, who's not here, who was part of that discussion, all those councillors who were part of it were not counted in the balance. It's been announced that it was done by one individual, and there seems to be a pattern to that. I think that's very sad, because I always appreciate what other people do. And though I'm lucky that I'm a Buckinghamshire councillor, I'm evidently aware of the fact that I work for you and the community, and without all of you do anything. So I hope at some point we will regulise that, because it fitted in very much with the discussion and challenge that we had as a community to get the cotton end sloping, which took us a number of years to do. And we have got some pedigree in these arguments. And with one thing of those arguments, I've always been so impressed is how we all shoulder by shoulder back each other up and support the chairs of the committee, whoever they may be, with that argument. And none of us seem to carry any specific favour from it. So I hope this isn't going to be a regular event, because I've got a wedding to go to next year, and I'm hoping that, you know, when I get to it, no one will claim that my son isn't my son. But because I do think we have to get these into measure. And I just think it's sad. I hope how we recognise that and how we take that to the appropriate committee to do that. I don't know whether it's something that Anya would be willing to have on a future committee, or whether it should go to planning. But I think that's something, because I do think we do need to recognise that. And I think invite Councillor Strain Clark and invite somebody back. But I'm sorry that that's a lot, but I have been reasonably busy for the past 2 months.
Thank you, Councillor. Let's start with your tenaciousness, or tenacity, I should say, in sticking with these issues and moving them forward. In the absence of any of the other councillors, that completes item 12. And we move on to the action list. I think the Town Clerk's got an update on the meeting with the Police and Crime Commissioner, which is scheduled for November.
Yeah, just to point out, whilst we have 2 questions, he is coming to visit us at Interim Council. Councillor Cole reminded me this earlier. Need to ask if anybody's got any additional questions to the 2 that are in the motion they want put forward. If he's asked for advance notice of questions, so if we could let him know what he'd like asked, I'll put this together and get them over to him in advance.
Very much. Councillor Cole.
Thank you for that, Town Clerk. Following on from that, we also raised concerns about the lack of response from the Police and Crime Commission, and we made a formal complaint. At the time, the Police and Crime Commission panel were unable to agree on a chair. That was June the 24th. There was tied voting on it. It was going to be sorted out July 29th. That meeting was cancelled. September the 23rd, finally, they elected Councillor Keith McLean from Milton Keynes Council. That was 3 weeks ago. Have we had any response yet? Nothing yet. If I may, a couple of other items here. River pollution. I noticed the response from the Environment Agency, which ended with these words: unfortunately, these cases take time, and with COVID, this has made things even worse. This morning, the Times ran a complaint from the Rivers Trust, which is the leading charity on rivers, against the Environment Agency, saying the continued COVID excuse is nonsensical, as both agency and water companies are key workers, unless they classed inspections of river sewage spillages and chemical spillages as very low priority. Why have they not done them? Inspections can always be made up over a year, and the agency chose not to do it. So I would question, I don't think there's much point going back to them, but I think members should know that so many people using COVID as an excuse now. The charity also points out that most COVID-related restrictions were relaxed in spring 2021. That's 18 months ago.
Yeah.
So why are they sitting on their hands? Finally, code of conduct process. We discussed this on May the 9th at our full council meeting. Town Clerk wrote to the hearing subcommittee to ask them to consider altering their code of conduct investigation process. A letter was sent in May. Could I ask if we heard anything in October? Thank you.
The council Statutory.
I may would make comment. I'm privileged enough to sit on the fire authority, and it's a procedural matter. What happens, not a legal matter. But you will be aware that there is the rules that the fire authority should be run by the Police and Crime Commissioner. So I think we should have a view of to ask how that would work if that was the case, and how that would both historically in Buckinghamshire have been separate units, and in the Thames Valley they're very separate units. So I think we should at least ask him for a view on how he thinks that would work, and whether he would see it as a good thing or a bad thing. And he can then prepare his statement in advance, because there's been very little conversation out of polite society about these things. And in the end, it's the service that delivers our service which supports us. And I think we need to be aware of what his view is.
Thank you. Anything else on this? No? Thank you. So moving on to the staffing update.
Yes, we got an email which informally advised you all that the recommendation of the interview panel was that we start becoming the deputy town clerk.
Those in favour? You should.
It's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure we all look forward to Louise as she develops that role. And congratulate her.
Yep.
Councillor Stubb.
Those for you, Madam Mayor, that we record our congratulations on her appointment, and wish her all the best.
Thank you.
We can do that.
Thank you. And reports from representatives on outside body. I believe Councillor Ralph wanted to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On behalf of the council, I attended some training, licensing training, mainly to do with the 2003 Act for licensing. First of all, I was interested to see that apart from the commercial side, there is also the taxi team, but I didn't really sort of worry too much about that. It's particularly section 182, which is where licenses are granted, often quite temporary and so on. I'm a naive when it comes to licensing matters, so I made my prime objective to make sure I got my hands on all the slides afterwards so that I could distribute them, which I duly did. And I have to thank Simon Gallagher, who took the training. We've been in correspondence. I've got hold of them. I've passed a copy to the town clerk. They're available there for you. And as I say, I think it's as much for town clerk and her staff to use in the first instance. And I would draw everybody's attention as and when and if you ever look at this. Slide 24, which is the last one, has some quite useful contacts on it. So there you can go for further information. And quite honestly, from the training, which was quite interesting, but I kind of couldn't see how the average councillor would use it very often. And I thought, well, if you want more information, they have some good, strong guides to that. And I would recommend it.
Thank you very much. And we've had a written report on Aylesbury Vale Transport Users Group. I noticed that there wasn't anybody from this council present, and nobody in this council seemed to have sent apologies, so I don't know whether we've got a formal representative. We need to check up on that.
Thank you, it's, I have to admit that one slipped mine.
Yeah,
I could presume it was a really nice, so I will double check on that.
we need to check and make sure we are represented there. And thanks to everybody who does attend Outside Bodies. Is that hand?
Yes. I was just going to say, I believe I've circulated the report for the Buckingham Youth Club AGM, which happened in September. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend due to working commitments, but I believe I've sent that out.
I got that today from you, didn't I? So
Yes,
I can circulate that round for you to look at it in the time.
Apologies for the delay.
Okay, thank you very much. So mayoral engagements and deputy mayor engagements. Happy to note those. Yeah. Bear with me when I get back to the agenda. So chair's announcements, other than to congratulate Louise and that we've got that management team in place now, which is really good news. There aren't nothing else to announce tonight. The next meeting is Monday, the 7th of November, which is when the Police and Crime Commissioner is coming. And the full council on the 28th of November.